Welcome to Align Day 2. How are we feeling? If you're able to join me live here in the Facebook group or on Instagram, I hope you will drop a comment and let me know that you're with me. And let me know what day of your cycle you're on. Even if you're watching the replay, I would love to hear. I am on day 17 of my cycle. So I am really smack dab in the middle of my inner summer personally. And I'm feeling a lot of energy, a little bit of distraction, and just a desire to be out in the world. You know, here in Lexington, Kentucky, the sky is blue, the sun is shining. So it's a little hard to be kind of tied to my desk all day. And I'm gonna go for a hike this afternoon to kind of expel some of that summer energy. Hello, Maggie, welcome. Let us know what day of your cycle you're on. Yes, so today, day 2 of this 5-day challenge that we're running right now called Align, we are focusing on the inner spring. So even if you're not in your own inner spring right now, we're learning all about this season so we can take these lessons forward into our next inner spring. And how perfect. You're on day 17 as well, Maggie. So am I. We are all synced up. That's so beautiful. I love it. So what I was saying is it's perfect that today we're diving into the inner spring, because inner spring is all about what? Pre-ovulation. And if you don't have a menstrual cycle, you're going to be working with the moon cycle. So that would represent the waning, growing moon, and particularly the first quarter moon, which is where we are today. Today is that first quarter moon day. So how perfect. February 8th, 2022, first quarter moon. It means we're going to have a full moon next week. It means we had a new moon last week. And so for all of us in the collective around the world, it's really an inner spring of its own kind. So I would invite you to pay attention to how that spring energy feels in your body, in your spirit, maybe shows up in your dream life when the moon is at its first quarter phase. And then of course, we're also talking about spring. And what is that? That's an earth season. So here in the Northern Hemisphere, we just had Imbolc, which is that cross-quarter day between winter solstice and spring equinox, or Ostara. And so already, you know, the birds are returning, they're building their nests and mating where I am here in Kentucky. And I invite you to pay attention to what's going on in your bioregion. Can you attune to the earth and listen to those maybe early signs of spring with all of us? You know, it's so exciting. And what's the point of all of this? What's the point of aligning with the moon, with the sun and the earth and our bodies and our wombs? The point is to locate ourselves here in space, here in reference to each other and in reference to these heavenly bodies and the earth under our feet, which has her own energy body. You know, we can attune to her energy body. She can actually take some of our built up stress. She is a natural antidepressant. She recycles anything you need to discharge from your own body, and then she puts it back into the collective in a healthy way, just as plants recycle our carbon dioxide for oxygen, right? So we can practice a lot of grounding, earthing, and rooting into her. And in fact, that's what the inner spring element is. It's an earth element. So we're going to practice some of that embodiment today. Once you're here, let me know. Let us know what day of your cycle you are on, beloveds. You are so welcome here with us. All right, I am going to light a candle to kick us off. And if you have a candle, I invite you to do the same. May we all feel the truth of our connection. May this candle be a symbol of that connection. May we remember our intention to be present, to be aligned, to be awake, to be here now. You are worthy. You are welcome here just as you are. And so it is. Put this here where hopefully you can see it. All right. Yay! Here we go, beloved ones, inner spring. Also, if you got a chance to do the inner maiden journey this morning, I would love to hear how that landed for you. I know it's a little bit different. Y'all probably think I'm crazy, but this is a visualization that I channeled for all of you. And I've been working with these inner archetypes for a while. And this is kind of the message that came through when I sat down to record. So I do hope it resonated for you. If it felt a little different, good on you for sticking with it. And as I said in the email, tomorrow's journey is going to be a lot shorter. So if today you were like, this is so long, do not give up. Tomorrow, the inner mother journey is only 13 minutes long, so I think you can stick with it. And if you don't want to just sit and close your eyes and experience the meditation, I invite you to take it on a walk. I invite you to have a pad of paper in front of you and draw what you see or journal, prompt it, like work with it in whatever way feels accessible. We don't have to be rigid. Okay, and that goes for our entire cycle practice. We do not have to be rigid. And of course, drop any questions in the chat and I'll try to keep an eye on that throughout our training today together. So this inner spring, we're talking about pre-ovulation. So after our bleed, which is our inner winter, after all of those hormones have been flatlined for a few days, and hopefully we've been resting in our cozy period cave, able to really carve out that space to do nothing, to receive visions from the goddess, to dream and surrender. Then that tender bud of spring begins to emerge and our hormones begin to climb again. It feels so good. Once you start paying attention to it, you can really feel that renewal come. And notice what day of your cycle it tends to arrive on. For me, lately I've been having pretty energetic winters, which is weird. I think it's because I gave up gluten and I'm in this intense embodiment awakening teacher training, which is so beautiful. But in a quote unquote normal cycle, I would say I experience this tender spring renewal on about day 5. Sometimes even as early as day 3. So inner winter doesn't really have to last that long. Notice when your own blood stops. Notice when your energy returns. And as with all things talking about your menstrual cycle, trust your body and your intuition here. That goes beyond anything that I might share, that anyone else might share this week in our Align journey. So notice that tender renewal. And maybe, you feel a bit of a pressure when that comes in to get right back out the door, leave the period cave and start showing up again in your friendships, in your community, in your work. Going live on Instagram, for example, whatever that looks like for you. And I would just really caution you to hold off, take a couple of days in that renewal phase and give it to yourself. So this might look like continuing to put boundaries around work. This might look like having a 3-hour work day or a 4-hour work day, whatever's possible for you. and using that renewal energy to go for a hike or to take yourself on a luxurious date, whatever that is like for you. Like for me, that would be getting the dog or not and going for a hike, really connecting with nature, maybe packing a book and like a picnic for myself. And it can feel really guilty because it's like, well, I'm supposed to be, this inner winter archetype of like in the period cave doing nothing. Or like, oh, as soon as my energy comes, aren't I supposed to get right back into giving mode? And patriarchy and capitalism love to work together to make us feel guilty anytime we pour into ourselves. But renewal truly is on that cusp of winter spring. So that's the first sign. And we're technically still in our inner winter, but we're emerging into that spring. This is a cycle. So everything's giving way to the next season, day to day. We're always in that liminal space. We're always cultivating more awareness. And I mean, I'm talking about very subtle hormonal changes and noticing how that shows up for you. So what's going to be our best friend on this journey of growing and deepening our awareness? Our journal. Please, 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 if you don't take anything else from this week, start journaling at least one page in the morning, how you're feeling and what day of your cycle you're on. That way you can start to pick up and weave these patterns of noticing. And if what I'm talking about seems like way too much, we're going to cover a lot this week, and you can always go back to the replay. But the most important thing is that you start to notice what it feels like for you. How inner spring shows up for you in your mind, in your body, in your spirit, in your longings, in your aversions, in your needs. And then we can start to meet those needs and have compassion. All right. So, estrogen is really beginning to rise again. And after that renewal, and after we've given that into ourselves a few more days, we'll start to notice, I am in the inner spring. I am ready to reemerge into the world. And it's a great time to start. So Lucy Peaches is one of my favorite period talkers, and she has a podcast called Period Queen. She has a book, and she calls this the start phase. She calls this the do phase. Sorry, Claire Baker calls this start energy. So it's about taking action once we are truly ready, once we really feel resourced enough. Taking action, getting back out there. And for me, that often shows up as really like social. Like I tend to use my inner spring to reach out to friends and, just see if they want to go on a walk. And I'll try to plan things for maybe that next inner spring, which is why I'm always planning things about a month out. And I know my friends can get a little annoyed, but it's because I'm thinking about where's my energy going to be. I really don't want to plan those social things for the inner winter or the inner autumn. I'm focused on those 2 weeks of spring and summer. And so particularly like work collaborations are great in the inner spring. Any kind of ideas that have been percolating through the period phase, through that inner winter, because we're not taking action in the inner winter. So hopefully you've been receiving these beautiful visions, and now it's time to put them into action. And you're going to feel really curious about what that looks like. You're going to feel this creative energy flowing through you because you're not judging it. You're not judging the visions that you've received in their own time. You've actually maybe been chomping at the bit, kind of holding back during that renewal phase, during that inner winter phase, to now unleash and unbridle yourself and really channel this muse energy and let her connect you to those people and those opportunities that are going to be placed on your path. So it's just this sense of open, expansive, maiden energy. Think about yourself when you were an adolescent and maybe when you were in high school and all of those dreams you had for your life. And it's a tender, vulnerable time, but it's also a really potent time. It's a time when we know our decisions matter. It's a time when we really ask ourselves, who am I going to be in my life? So for the purpose of the menstrual cycle or the moon cycle, which is a month, we can ask ourselves at the beginning in the spring, what are my intentions for this cycle ahead? Like, what's my plan? And that's the best time for putting that plan into action. Sometimes I set intentions in the inner winter, but lately I've been kind of waiting till spring to see how that energy guides me. It's really not in the head, it's in the heart. I'm being led by my own hormones, and everything is in balance and it's synchronized. There's no forcing, it just happens naturally. And that reminds me of this card that I love to use in the spring phase. It's the Fool. So if you know tarot, you know that, the Fool is that number 0. It's that starting point in the major arcana. This little chickadee in my Wild Unknown Tarot deck is just beginning her journey, through the tarot, and she's courageous and she's brave and she doesn't know what's going to happen, but she's going to fly that nest. And that's really us emerging from our period cave. It's such a beautiful energy. But something we want to be careful of. We want to protect that inner maiden. We don't want to put ourselves out there too soon. And that's why I spoke about the renewal, those couple of days to really pour into ourselves. And we really want to protect ourselves from being taken advantage of. So it's important that while we're having all this connective social energy and this just sweet energy, that we're also keeping that edge for ourselves and negotiating opportunities, like I spoke about collaboration. So make sure we've got our contracts in place. Make sure, we're taken care of and we're not going to set ourselves up for overgiving. And we're making sure we're pacing ourselves as well, which can be hard when you've got all this energy and you're so excited. Just be mindful of pacing yourself and not dropping the self-care that you've been practicing through that period phase, through that new moon or inner winter phase. And for me, I notice some anxiety can come up in my inner spring and also in my spring season. Like around now, I'm starting to feel a little bit of anxiety, like almost a restless energy. I'm so ready to hit the ground running. I'm so ready for that peak summertime, but we can't rush it. We need to ground down into Mama Earth and take some deep breaths and pace ourselves. So it's important for me as well, like in the work world, I'm not doing anything that requires too much focus or anything that's like really menial. Like tax season is here, right? But I will save that for an inner autumn when I've got that nesting hormone, that adulting hormone of progesterone. But for right now, it's really a sweet climb of estrogen, which is so sweet. So yeah, that respecting the tender vulnerability of it while also indulging the sweetness and the energetics of the inner spring. So we're working our way up to ovulation. We're feeling really playful, maybe a bit innocent. Everything's new. You know, everything's new. Everything's awakening and being reborn. We're curious about the world. We're ready for an adventure. We're manifesting, you know, and that brings me to the waxing moon. So do we know what this means, waxing and waning moons? Hopefully we do. I have this great moon calendar that I keep right by my desk. This is from my dear mentor, coach, friend, Becca Piastrelli, her new book, Root and Ritual. She gave everyone that pre-ordered it this beautiful calendar for 2022 of all of the moon phases, and it's just been such a handy tool. But I'm sure you could Google and print one or make your own. It helps me stay aligned and attuned to what's going on with the moon every single day. I try to find the moon every night as well, but sometimes it's just not possible. And so for me, really writing down every day what phase the moon is in is really helpful. And I haven't updated this yet, but this is my very messy daily tracker. So I have my journal where I journal about my spiritual energy, my physical energy, my mental energy. I have my calendar where I literally write what day I'm going to be on for planning ahead. And then I have this. So I update this daily. I'll just put, you know, today's date, what cycle day it is, where the moon phase is, and then what season we're in and what archetypes I'm working with. So it's so sweet that today actually is that first quarter moon energy, because that is associated with spring. Like I said, I'm on cycle day 17, and it is Tuesday. So I'll just update all of that. And it really just helps me stay grounded and connected. And like I said earlier, it helps me locate myself in space. So first quarter moon, this is really the time for planting seeds. This is the time for refining our actions and opening up. This is that time for initiating and doing and being courageous and bold. And as far as working with the moon goes, I like to write out my intentions. I like to speak them aloud, cast spells for the month ahead, saying things that I desire to happen as though they have already happened. It's a really potent day on that silver wheel of the moon cycle. And I'd love to hear from any of y'all what this day means for you, what this phase of the moon, this first quarter moon. But really, we can think of Maiden energy and inner spring as the entire waxing moon season. Just as we will reach peak ovulation on the full moon, for example, this is that climbing estrogen time of that growing moon in the sky. And it's just a reminder, it's that growing season, you know? So, beautiful. And let me know what questions you have as well. We're gonna do some breath work and some embodiment right now, and then I'm gonna teach a bit about self-care for this season, nutrition, movement, relationships, adventure this season, how to do our life's work in our inner spring, and we're going to talk about the Maiden archetype some more, and we're going to do a little ritual. So we better pick it up. So I wanted to do a embodiment practice all about the pelvic floor, the second chakra. Let's see what we got here. Make sure you all can see me. So just, yeah, finding a space where you can move a little bit. Um, I don't know about y'all, but like I was raised evangelical and I was pretty much told that, touching my body, feeling my body from the inside out was taboo. So anytime I can like scrub my body and particularly my womb area and connect into this second chakra space, the sacral chakra, which is between our hips and kind of that bowl of our pelvis. It includes, our womb, our uterus, whether it's physical or energetic. It goes through that sacrum to the low back area, and it includes the pelvic floor muscles and all of the sex organs, and it's associated with the element water. I know I said we're working with earth today, so it can be a little confusing. We're connecting lineages and traditions here, and we're just feeling into our intuition. So I'm going to start by scrubbing the actual bone, the hip bone. So the hip flexor down into that groin muscle area, and actually finding the knobby point of my bone there on either side, and breathing into that. Scrubbing along the outer hips, using whatever pressure feels good. Maybe just starting to move your feet back and forth, swaying side to side, holding that bowl of your pelvis, your beautiful belly, all along the belly button, scrubbing, and into that low back. Good. And now we'll just start to do some hip circles. So again, maybe you were told that moving your body is evil or, dirty or bad or wrong in some way. We're just going to challenge that by swirling our hips around, awakening the second chakra, maybe bringing a hand to the belly or the uterus. Maybe bringing one to the heart. Breathing in. This heart-womb connection. In Chinese medicine, these two are connected. And there is a channel that flows from your heart to your womb. So we're awakening that connection this afternoon. Feeling the love you have for your womb space, the love you have for your body's ability to feel pleasure, and starting to feel these parts of the body come online. Maybe they've been shut down and dormant. Maybe you're in your own inner spring. So just letting these things awaken, noticing what wants to awaken here. Feeling the pelvic floor muscles, can you release them a little more? Slowing your circles, taking a deep breath in, and letting it all go. Coming to stillness, still with one hand on the womb, one on the heart. Releasing all those muscles, the muscles of the pelvic floor, the low back. Feeling all the way down into your root, releasing to Mama Earth like we talked about, grounding in here, widening your stance. You are rooted upon the earth. You are an earthling. You are a cyclical being. Every part of your experience belongs. Just noticing that part of you that longs to awaken, to be present for your own life. You are a spiritual badass. You're willing to do this work. Celebrate that. Bring the arms up overhead. Deep breath in. And exhale, hands at heart center. Beautiful ones. Thank you for joining me. That was such a sweet practice. I love working with this second chakra. It's responsible for our pleasure, our creativity, all the things we're working with here in the inner spring. Let me know how that was for you in the comments. I would love to hear. All right, we're gonna do some embodiment every day because none of this is meant to be for the head. Like, none of this is meant for you to just listen and be inspired. Like, what is that? Inspiration without action is nothing. So let's really awaken our bodies this week and be radical and be courageous and see what actually takes root moving forward. All right. So, like I said, your journal is your best friend this week and throughout your cycle practice. When I look back over my spring journaling, and I do color code, so I'll go back every few months and actually highlight certain themes that occur in my journal throughout the different seasons, and that's my data. That's your data for you to analyze and use in whatever way feels right. But when I look back over my spring journaling, you know, it's a lot of detailed plans. I'm so excited to think about my business and think about what the month ahead could hold. And so I will actually draw a lot of charts and make a lot of bullet point lists and get really excited. I'm not writing so much in that like long prose format. It's a lot of lists, numbered lists, checklists, things like that. And I'm really letting my body lead the way. So I'll often start with my movement practice and then I'll go into that list making. I let it all arise from my energy, as I said before. Because it's hard to sit in your inner spring. It's hard to be tied to your desk. You really just want to move. So there's like some spring cleaning that goes on in my journaling. I'll note down like what I like inner spring cleaning, like what I'm ready to release from the past cycle and how things are going to be different, what I'm not going to do this cycle. And then I'm also really noticing what I'm inspired to do for my muse. So we all have a muse who guides our creativity, and it's up to us to really keep our vessel open and inviting for her so that she will come and sit with us and continue to inspire us. You know, we have to get out of our own way when it comes to our creative life. So I like to plan my artist dates in my inner spring, and I'll find those visions from my inner winter are really wanting to be expressed in list form. So if you've ever done the artist's way, you know artist dates are these dates we take our muse on, ourselves on, to fill that tank of inspiration again and again. And sometimes it's as simple as going to the art store, the craft store, and I'll buy like a new package of markers or a coloring book, you know, or sometimes I'll take myself to an indie movie. But I find that in my inner spring, I really want to plan those artist dates. Okay, so self-care for me in the inner spring is kind of that traditional self-care that we think of, that I always say self-care is not. So I'm always telling my clients self-care is not your mani-pedi and your hair appointment and shopping and all of this, but truly in the inner spring, I love adornment practice. You know, I love spa days and, you know, soaking in the tub. I love wearing my pink lipstick and really thinking about my outer appearance. It just feels like a natural time for me to do that, emerging from that period cave into the world again. So pay attention to what wants to be expressed through your own adornment practice this week. And it's for you. It's not for someone else. Adornment is how you adore yourself. So just remember that. And let's talk about nutrition, because this is one aspect of self-care that is so important. So throughout your inner winter, you were focusing on warm, easy to digest foods. But once we have that renewal and we're into our inner spring, the week after our period, it's really time to ease back into fresh fruits and vegetables. So you can start to eat those cold things again. But eat whatever supports your tenderly growing energy. So you really, again, have to pay attention on a gut cellular level to what foods give you energy. You know, how are you going to support that growing energy? For me, I can't eat, fried things in my inner spring. I just feel like in such a slump that then kind of sets me up for a slumpy month ahead. So I'm really going to eat lots more salads, and I'm craving those like crunchy, fresh fruits and vegetables. You want to metabolize your rising estrogen. That's really important. So sprouts are really good for this. I love bean sprouts, radish sprouts, putting them in wraps on salads. And also any fermented foods are really good in your pre-ovulation. Of course, here we're talking about the menstrual cycle, not the moon cycle. And then Chinese medicine also has lots of great tips that are kind of similar for eating in the spring earth season. So you want to take that into account as well. What's available in your bioregion, this earth season, making those decisions. But sprouts, fermented foods such as pickles, kimchi, sauerkraut, and kombucha are great probiotic rich go-tos. They restore proper estrogen levels and they help metabolize that estrogen. So you're not getting too much too soon and getting sick. So those are just some things to keep in mind if you want to take it a step further with your cycle practice. Maybe that's the next frontier for you. I know it is for me. And then movement, I already talked a lot about. I think of my self-care routine every morning as my movement, my morning pages, and my meditation or my mindfulness. And those will shift based on where I am in my cycle. So like I said before, I like to move first thing when I'm pre-ovulatory and then develop a journaling practice from there, or maybe make a list based on what came up during my movement. Personally, I love dancing in my inner spring. The other day I was in my inner spring and I've been really attuning to the land and the weather first thing in the morning and trying not to judge whatever is going on outside my window. And you can do this from inside. So I was attuning to a tree in my front yard and I just wanted to dance. There was just this sense of joy that rose up within me and like so much love for this tree that I had never really paid attention to. So notice how you want to move in your inner spring, and look into ecstatic dance because it's really fun. So a lot of dancing for me, a lot of time in nature, hiking. But once I'm kind of past the really tender phase, I'm getting on to the second half of my inner spring. I just want to be with people. So I will sign up for more group workout classes, yoga classes, cardio classes, spinning classes, bonus points if it can be out in nature, which we're getting back into that time of year here where there will be more yoga in the park and things like that. So exciting. Yeah, I'm into cardio during this week for sure. And then I want to take a moment to talk about yoga. So Jamie Botian, my friend and yoga teacher, developed 4 cyclical yoga practices for those clients who work with me in my cycle coaching program called Ebb and Flow, which you can learn about by going to ellengilbert.com/ebb-and-flow. And you'll get $800 off the founding member price if you sign up for a clarity call and get on my wait list this week. And in that program, Jamie is going to be guiding you in a yoga flow for each phase of the cycle. But this is what she says about inner spring yoga. We really want to focus on standing poses. So rooting into the earth, drawing up that sweet energy from Mama Earth, letting it arise, as I said before, from nature and then through the body. So mountain pose, tree pose, triangle pose, high crescent lunge. These are all great poses for when you're in your inner spring, and they help to balance the body as well and all that energy. And she also says it's important to focus on flow. So that's why I love to dance, doing really feminine flows, like we did the hip circles, anything that feels fluid, feminine, juicy, sweet, really flowing in our yoga practice through lots of standing poses and building the pace as we go, just as we're building our energy in that inner spring. It is so sweet, and it's so good to stretch and move the body after a few days of maybe dormancy during your bleed. So that's movement. And next I want to talk about relationships. So I'm going to be sharing every day during a line some tips on navigating your relationships during your menstrual cycle, because it's really important. So like I said, you might be feeling a resurgence of social energy. So you want to plan some social time this week, but don't overpack your calendar, and really think about the second half of the week as kind of building that social time. And always give yourself permission to cancel plans if something doesn't feel right in your body, because you never know when you get there how you'll actually feel. And every cycle is different. We can't expect our inner spring to always look the same. We can't expect day 7 to always be the same, even though it tends to be more alike than the other days of the cycle, in my experience. Maybe starting the cycle social time with one dear friend who you can talk to about your cycle. And then from there, getting more and more vulnerable with who you're seeing and expanding the size of your group. You don't want to burn yourself out during your inner spring. Peak energy isn't here yet. It's on its way. We're going to talk about summer tomorrow. You don't have to rush it in your inner spring. And then in terms of romantic relationships, you might be feeling really flirty but still shy. So that's the Maiden for you. I like to use Maiden energy to revisit my favorite childhood games and adventures. And this is something that Julia Cameron teaches in The Artist's Way as well, to tap into what did you love to do as a kid? I love to play with sidewalk chalk and, roller skate. And, how can you bring that sweet adolescent playfulness to your inner spring? How could you bring it into a date? Maybe doing something really just fun for the sake of being fun, something intrinsically fun that feels good on a date with your beloved. It's that fun, that innocence, that lightness this week. Those are good guiding words for planning those outings. And you also might be feeling spontaneous. So maybe you don't need to plan it all. Like I said, don't be too rigid. Be spontaneous in your inner spring. Just see what you feel like doing and allow yourself space to do it. Yeah, and like I said, like I'm always feeling really sexy, like I want to wear, shorter skirts and, get my nails done and just really adorn myself. So allow your partner to really cherish you during this time and tell them the words that you want to hear. And don't be afraid to really play in those romantic relationships during your inner spring. Beautiful. So now we're going to chat a bit about your life's work in your inner spring. And I already have talked about it. Like, don't chain yourself to your desk. Really use the energy for planning and collaborating and creating. So, yeah, we're going to, if we've had a project kind of bubbling for a few cycles, maybe during that inner winter of, we've received visions when we're resting, or, we're actually starting to feel into what it will be like to execute our plan and to receive, the good benefits of whatever we're creating. Inner spring is that time to talk about it like it's already happening. Like I said about manifestation, first quarter moon, it's the same energy. You can cast spells. You create by speaking aloud. So do it right now. Like, what are you hoping to create this cycle or the next cycle? Start talking about it and saying it like it's already happened. And see how that shifts things. See who that draws closer to you. See what energy starts to come into your being. It's really an act of trust. And we can feel tender in our inner spring phase, but we can also feel courageous at the same time. We can do this. So maybe you're talking about it like it already happened. You're reaching out to collaborators for assistance. You're asking your hype people to come and hype you up. You're marketing it before you've even maybe put the finishing touches on it. You are just making it happen. And I don't know what your work is or what your career is. Maybe you can let me know, or we can chat about it in your free coaching session if you sign up for one this week. How to bring that inner spring abundance and manifestation power into your work, whatever that is. And it could be your job, it could be your passion project, it could be both. However you view your purpose and your life's work and your creativity. I hope that makes sense and resonates with you. So let's talk a bit about the Maiden. And I want to know how Maiden journey was for you today. She took you on a path to see your future, to see your inner child, rather, which can be really sweet, but it can be a little bit traumatizing, depending on your childhood and what came up for you during that visualization. Again, you're a spiritual badass. You can do this. So that's one of Inner Maiden's gifts when we work with her, is we can heal the inner child. And I like to spend a lot of time holding my inner child. There's certain ages that really come to me with different needs. So start to cultivate those relationships. And I hope that the visualization gave you a sense that Inner Maiden's not just about pre-ovulation. It's not like, okay, we work with this archetype when our body's doing this. Like, no, we're noticing that archetype's energy flowing through us in that phase, but we're also noticing how it relates to every aspect of our lives. And inner child is always with us. Time is spiralic. We can reach back to the past to touch our inner child. We can reach forward into the future to hold hands with our future self. We're connecting this chain of being, these forms of our psyche. We are healing the past. We are healing the future. We are healing now. So this is sort of my worldview and how I apply cycle wisdom to my spiritual practice. And the medicine that the maiden carries is this sense of self-cherishing. You know, she told you, right? I need to be cherished. So I hope you were able to take note on what came up around where you need to be more cherished. You know, which could mean witnessed, validated, hyped up, encouraged, where you need to feel more beloved. And how are you going to get that? We always think we have to look outside of ourselves, but it starts with you. And then you can model that self-cherishing to others, and then they feel safe cherishing you, and vice versa. And we are creating a ripple effect. We are creating the world that we long to live in. Maiden medicine is also innocence, right? And I don't mean innocence from like an evangelical perspective. I mean innocence that it's that newness. It's that fool card again, right? It's that beginner's mindset. We have to unlearn everything we think we know and be willing to fall on our fucking face when we fly that nest, you know? But there is a natural pull to fly the nest. There is a natural restlessness that serves our awakening. So just getting really subtly attuned to that. So maiden medicine is self-cherishing, innocence, and play. So that's where my inner child really comes up. She always wants to play, and we have to balance work and play. Yeah. But I see so many times my clients are overworking and underplaying, and it's an epidemic. It's a huge problem. Play is not sitting in front of your TV for 5 hours and numbing out with food. And I say this to you, and I say it to myself. I need to hear that as well. You know, play requires energy, and it's energy cultivating. So even when you feel you don't have the energy for play, start to smile, start to laugh, fake it till you make it. And before you know it, it's just taking you and you're playing. How do you like to play? Would love to hear. So those are maiden medicine, but maiden shadows are really being naive, being a people pleaser. In the nervous system side of things, which we're going to talk about this week, it is the Fawn Response. So you've probably heard of fight, flight, freeze, and now we're starting to hear about this Fawn Response. That is the people-pleasing nervous system response. It's when you go into that good girl, sweet, innocent, you know, maybe even dumb kind of archetype to get safe and to manipulate others to protect you. And it's a trauma response. So we can see that there is benefit to it on a survival perspective, but we're not here to survive, we're here to thrive. So healing that maiden shadow is something we all need to work on. And I have it in a big way. Like, I was brought up to believe that my power and my goodness was my sweetness. And, you know, how well behaved I was, how pretty I was, how in a good mood I was. So, yeah, something to read about this week, the Fawn Response, and to examine for yourself. Where is that showing up? But you got this. So I did want to touch on Ostara. Ostara is the pagan holiday at the spring equinox, and it's where Easter comes from. Ostara is a goddess of spring. So when we look at the wheel of the year, I think I'm going to do a workshop teaching y'all how to make your own wheel. I've got my menstrual cycle, my creative cycle, the moon cycle, the wheel of the year, and my archetypes on my little wheel here. But when we look at the wheel of the year up here on this yellow paper, as I said, Yule is winter solstice. We just had Imbolc, which is that cross quarter day between winter solstice and spring equinox. And now we're on our way to Ostara, which is the spring equinox. It's on March 20th this year, well before Easter, which is more based on a lunar calendar. Anyway, fascinating. But you can think of creating an Ostara altar with themes of birth, new life, resurrection, which is why we see so many motifs around rabbits, because they can be pregnant and become pregnant. So they represent this goddess Ostara, who is the goddess of fertility. You can think about those chicks, which is so perfect that that's what's on this card for the Fool. Chick energy, new baby fuzzy furry little sweet chicks. Eggs, of course, associated with that, and with just anything new and colorful and vibrant awakening. So build your Ostara altars, because it's coming up soon. And maybe you want to research a ritual that you can do. I'm going to share a ritual with you for this earth element I mentioned earlier. Again, it's that grounding element that we need to draw on in our inner spring, because we can feel a lot of anxiety, a lot of vulnerability. So to really counter that fawn response, can you earth down into Mama Nature? You can do any of these meditations where you're rooting down into a great tree, and you're imagining your roots growing into the core of the earth, and you're just sitting with that. You can go out into nature, take your shoes and socks off and walk barefoot on the earth, do like a walking meditation. If it's warm enough where you are. I can't wait to start doing this again. It's my daily practice when the ground has thawed. And it is so sweet. And just really remember you are an earthling upon the earth. That helps me ground down. So find what works for you with this earth element. But I would recommend that a ritual you do today or on your next inner spring, or maybe every first quarter moon, is to make a list of your hopes for the cycle ahead and a list of your anxieties that you're releasing. And I want you to bury that list, maybe in a houseplant, maybe in your yard, in your garden. But when you bury it, attune to that earth in your hand. That's grounding, that's earthing. That has the power to take that built up negative energy and stress. And bury your list, maybe bury your feet. And notice how it feels to surrender both your hopes and your anxieties to Mama Earth. And invite the inner maiden to be there with you as you do this. If you're new to ritual, of course, give yourself so much permission. You can do it really privately. You don't have to tell anyone. But we will celebrate you here in this community always. And remember, you get to make it up. So we are re-enchanting this earth that so much has been disenchanted from. We're reanimating our lives. That's what ritual is all about. So beautiful ones, if you have any questions, please reach out to me. Please go ahead and book your free cycle coaching session this week. I can't wait to see you. And we can talk more about these themes and how they relate to your beautiful, precious life. Sending you so much love for the rest of day 2. Tomorrow's training is at 9 a.m. Eastern Time, and we are going to be talking about the inner summer. And you'll get your inner mother journey at 5 a.m. Eastern in your inbox. So can't wait to keep circling with you, lovelies. Have a beautiful rest of your day.